Clementine laid flat down on the cold snow with her hands pressed up against her ears as the gunfire continued to fill the air. She was unaware of what happened next, but she had the feeling that she would have to move sooner or later before things got bad. Eventually, Clementine slowly leaned up against the back of the snow and had her surroundings, hoping any of the friends were still standing. The first thing she saw was Arvo, the kid responsible for all this. He was already trying to apply pressure to the wound his sister had been shot at, but it did not look like he could help her. Mike appeared in front of her, folding his hand against his left arm where he'd been shot. Ended up dropping his pistol, stepped back in to get in the cover of the others. "Shit, guys, I've been shot!" Luke was behind too, firing the rounds from his AK-47, in an attempt to keep his head down, but by the time they tried to firing the supporting the others. The other two men, that with Arvo continued firing towards their enemies. The bold man with the AK-47 had been shot in his leg and was now currently on his back in the open, but he still continued to fire with it, shouting Russian words. As for the man with the shotgun, he was taking cover behind the rock, firing towards Carly, who was in cover behind a tree. The man with the shotgun continued firing rounds towards Carly. "Mike, get into cover!" Bonnie could be heard calling, to try to call him over from where she was taking cover behind a couple trees. "Clementine!" Clementine immediately recognized that voice and shifted her attention towards Lee, who was in cover with the others, shooting with only one hand. She was about to crawl over towards him, but shifted her attention towards around when the sounds of crying hit her eardrums. She silently gasped and shifted her attention to near Carly, where the baby was lying on the ground in the middle of the gunfire. She had to do something to get him to safety before it was too late. Slowly, Clementine began crawling like an army soldier towards the baby, refusing to get herself to safety before the baby was safe. "Clementine!" Lee called out to her, wishing that he could jump over there and get to her, but with the gunfire and his injury, that would only get himself killed. "Clem, keep your head down!" Luke also spotted this and had no idea what she was doing. He attempted to try to call out to her, but with the gunfire continuing, he did not think she could hear him. "Clem, what are you doing? Get to cover! You're out in the open!" Clementine ignored Luke and quickly stood up and ran towards the baby, despite the heavy gunfire. She swiftly scooped up in her arms and ran back towards Luke, with all taking cover behind, now safe and sound away from the range of Arvo's group. "I got him!" Luke was completely surprised when he saw the baby, unaware that he was still out during the shootout. "Oh crap! I didn't even know he was still out there. Good job, Clem." Behind the wall, Lee and Clementine were taking cover behind. Sarah remained silent as she kept her head down, placed her hands over her ears, trying to drown out the gunfire. Nearby, Lee scooted over towards Clementine, who was holding his hand with his shoulder where he'd been shot. He placed his good arm around her for a moment, embracing her in a hug. "Clementine, are you okay?" "I'm fine," Clementine assured, but her attention soon focused towards Lee's wound. "Lee, you've been hit." "I'm all right. It's just a flesh wound," Lee assured, examining the moment that he hit his shoulder. It gave him a bit of pain, but he leaned up against for a moment, check on the situation, but immediately ducked again when the man with the AK-47 took an aim at him. "Ah, shit. We need to do something, or we're all screwed," Luke suggested. He was not specific on what they should do next. "I don't tend to wait around until it runs out of ammunition. Let's do something." "Then do something already," Lee had told him, while holding his hand behind his shoulder. "You're the one with the gun. Shoot him." Nearby trees, Carly remained covered behind a tree where she blinded the fire towards the man with the shotgun, unable to get a good game on him without revealing herself. She attempted to negotiate with them, was as she held her gun for a moment. "This doesn't have to end like this. You can just leave, and we can all forget about this. You know you can't beat us." The man with the shotgun refused, leaning out for a moment as he continued firing at Carly, but his shotgun shells didn't seem to be fired through the tree. "What?" Carly was unsure of what he was saying. "You and your friends will all die." He now spoke in English, continuing to fire his shells towards Carly, not caring about the rest of his enemies nearby. Luke had leaned out from cover for a second, immediately focused attention on the man with the shotgun. He turned back towards the wall. Lee and Clementine were just taking cover from behind. That just gave him an idea. A risky one. It may just work. Okay, I think I can get a shot on this guy if I can get over just towards that. Can you cover me? Just keep him distracted long enough. Lee nodded in agreement. He too was not well enough to shoot at the moment. He handed his Glock 17 over to Clementine. Here you shoot. Keep your head down, okay? Okay, I'm on it, Clementine agreed, exchanging the baby for Lee's Glock 17. Okay, good. Just a couple of seconds is all I need. I'll count to 3, and that's when I move. Luke explained his plan, leaned up slightly, preparing to run. Alright, 3, 2, 1, go! Quick as a flash, Clementine jumped and fired a single round towards the man with the shotgun, causing him to duck down behind the rock. Luke took his chance and tried to run over to the two. 1, go! But of course, as luck would have it, Luke took his chance to run towards their cover, but unfortunately he was not quick enough, and with the man with the AK-47, was able to hit him in the leg. Ah! Luke screamed, falling down to his side open. He groaned in pain for a few seconds, unable to move, yet leaving him invulnerable. Luke! Bonnie screeched, where she and Mike were in cover. The man with the AK-47 rose his gun and then attempt to end Luke before he had the chance to fire. A gunshot was fired, but followed by blood spilling out the side of his head. He collapsed down to the ground, lying motionlessly. His friend had seen him, already knew who shot him. It was Carly, the woman who had been trying to shoot for a while. He growled and leaned back up and fired more shells towards Carly. Now that he was distracted, Luke took his chance to escape, crawled over towards Lee and Clementine. He leaned back against the walks, clutching his wounded leg. Jesus, that hurt. Luke, I'm so sorry, Clementine apologized, although she did not really have anything to apologize for. It ain't your fault, Clem. Don't worry, Luke assured, examining his wound, but went over for his right leg, but it still continued to hurt like hell. He got me in the leg, but it looks like it went right through. Ah, shit, it hurts like hell. The man with the shotgun was no longer shooting towards Carly. Instead, his attention was towards the rest of the group. He could not be stopped firing, no matter how many of them they were. Clementine leaned around the corner for a moment, was surprised to see Arvo mourning for the loss of his sister, was still unaware of what was happening next. Before he knew it, his sister reanimated into a walker and reached up to grab him. At first, Clementine considered saving him, but after what he did, she could still not forgive him. She allowed him to keep the supplies and let him live when they first met. This was how he repaid her, by trying to take their supplies, even despite the fact that Sarah were children as well as her, and that they had a baby in their group. She shot a hateful look at him and watched his sister grab to hold a huge chunk out of his neck. Clementine pulled out her Glock 17 and shot Arvo's sister in the head. But as for Arvo, she did consider leaving him to suffer, but decided to put him out of his misery. She raised her gun and proceeded to shoot him, but her gun merely clicked, meaning she was out of bullets. Arvo groaned in agonizing pain as she pressed both of his hands against his neck to stop the bleeding, but nothing he could do was to save him. He could only lay there and cry out in pain. Before long, the gunfire had halted and the man with the shotgun eventually moved out from cover, marched towards Bonnie and Mike's position, now that the rest of the group was no longer firing. He laughed for a few seconds as he kept aim towards them. Before he finished his sentence, a gunshot echoed through the area. The man froze, and his steps were widened as he dropped his shotgun, clutched his hands against his chest. He slowly marched towards the group the last ounce of his strength, before he collapsed into first place in the snow. Before the area was clear now, Arvo's group was dead. Everyone got out from their cover and proceeded to regroup towards the path, Clementine being the only one holding the baby. Before Lee joined the others, he shifted attention towards Sarah, who was slowly shaking, and aimed her Glock 17 towards the man with the shotgun he was standing. Lee was certainly surprised by this, and slowly moved towards Sarah to avoid causing her to panic any further. Sarah had never fired a gun in her life, let alone kill someone, but Lee was glad she did it. He slowly took the gun from her hands and placed it on his hand and shoulder. "It's okay, Sarah. It's okay. Should I have done that?" Sarah asked, obviously quite shooken up from killing someone. "I know it's hard for you to do, Sarah. but nothing thing, but nothing is, but nothing is pretty easy and gets any better. But you did the right thing, Lee assured, using the same words that he taught Clementine a long time ago. A gun that saves your life from now on. You save us all of our lives today, Sarah. Your dad would have been proud. Sarah was relieved to hear those words from Lee, now happy that something useful that helped the rest of the group. She even managed to raise a slight smile. Thank you, Lee. Oh no. Lee and Sarah were distracted by Bonnie's sudden gasp, quickly ran over to investigate. The remaining members of the group were all gathered around the tree. He moved through the group to investigate what was happening, but his eyes quickly met what they were looking at. His heart sank, and his mouth and his eyes widened in disbelief. No! There, lying motionlessly on the ground, was a bullet mark in her chest, was Carly, the love of his life. The woman who he cared for and loved with all of his heart was dead. She had her eyes closed and her arms and legs were spread out against the snow. No, no, no! Lee tried to pretend this was a dream, but nothing he could do was going to change this. He kneeled down towards Carly's corpse and attempted to shake her awake, but she wouldn't respond. Carly! No, no! I'm sorry, Lee, Bonnie apologized, giving her condolences to the loss of his girlfriend. She sighed and placed her arm around Sarah, who watched in sadness at this terrible event. Lee continued to try and wake her up, even attempting to pump her chest, but nothing he did to wake her up. He had to accept that she was gone. Lee was never the one to show tears, but for the first time in a long time, he began to shed tears out from his eyes, silently crying. The rest of the group did not interrupt him, but remained silent. Each and every one of them watched in sadness. Clementine shedded a few tears herself, while she held the baby in her arms. Bonnie looked like she was about to cry, but did not show any tears and helped comfort Sarah, who also began to cry. Mike supported Luke due to his injured leg, and both of them watched in sadness. With Carly and Rebecca dead and Jane no longer with them in the group, that left only the 6 of them altogether, including the baby. There were not really many of them left now, and they had any chance of survival, they had to work together as a team and be more cautious. As a couple of minutes passed, Lee eventually stood up, taking Carly's new Glock 17. Without saying a word, he aimed towards her forehead and fired a single round. He did not want to do it, but the most important thing was that she would not come back as one of them, and was at a better place now. Lee placed her Glock 17 into his pocket, and without saying a word, he began walking towards the direction where they were heading out in the first place. The rest of the group followed now slowed, beginning to show Lee down the path. Not without saying a word, they took their weapons and ammunition from Arvo's group and proceeded to follow Lee, but were now unsure of where they were going now, to the town they assumed. Mike walked past Arvo, who was still alive but was slowly dying. He did feel sympathy for him, but he knew for a fact there was nothing he could do to save him now. I'm sorry, he said, apologized, before proceeding to follow the rest of the group. Most of the group remained silent as they followed Lee down the path. He seemed awful quiet, but it was best not to disturb him for now and leave him be. As they continued walking, Clementine, Luke, and Bonnie were still in sadness due to the deaths of Carly and Rebecca. All that happened so fast that there was nothing they could do to prevent it. Why did this have to happen? Bonnie wondered while she had her hand against her arm. How did this happen? Clementine added. Rebecca was a good person, but Lee did what he had to protect the group, Luke explained. Was limping slightly due to his injury. It's no one's fault. She just lost too much blood, I guess, and because of the cold and exhaustion. Damn. At least she's with Alvin now, Clementine reminded him, her being the one to believe in the afterlife, but was unsure if Luke and Bonnie did. Yeah, she is, Bonnie agreed, as she looked up towards the sky, gazing off in the clouds. Rebecca, we promise to take care of your baby. You can rest in peace without having to worry about the walkers anymore. I'm glad you and Alvin are together again. Clementine smiled in agreement, but soon dropped when she had her attention towards her guardian. She and Lee had lost so many people in the past, but he never acted like this before. Do you think Lee will be okay? I've never seen him like this before. I don't know, Clem, Luke admitted, groaning mid-sentence when his leg caused him pain. Shit! Anyway, I thought I would let you know. You've been with Lee for a long time. Best we just leave him alone for now, Bonnie suggested, thinking about the time where she had accidentally killed Dee, but never revealed the truth to Leland. It'll take some time, but I'm sure he'll be fine. Nodding in agreement, Clementine walked over towards the rest of the group as they continued following Lee down the path towards the woods. Everyone was still unsure of what they were going to do or where to go, but they knew Lee was a smart leader and would eventually lead the group for somewhere safe for a while.